Hey there, I hope you're having a fantastic day. Sometimes God tells me to preach about things, and I don't know why He says these certain topics, but He gave me the idea a couple of weeks ago to speak about anger and about Samson. So that's what we'll do today. And I will go through several scriptures that are in the book of Judges. I would encourage you to read Samson's entire story, and it starts in in Judges chapter 13, and goes on through chapter 16. I'll be reading select verses from there, but I'll be paraphrasing a lot of Samson's story if you are not familiar with his story. So we're working out of the book of Judges, chapters 13 through 16 today. And my question is, do you need anger management? And if you say no, then you're probably not being entirely truthful, because every one of us gets angry. And sometimes anger can be a good thing if we channel that anger into taking some kind of positive action to make a difference for some cause. Then the anger can be a good thing. But in Samson's case, and as it happens for a lot of us, anger is not a good thing. It has some negative side effects, I guess, and we're going to learn about those. Now, do you need anger management? Well, you probably do. I tease my daughter Amber. She's very quiet in public, but if you drive with her, you will hear Amber. She suffers from what they call road rage. If she gets in the car, she will yell at people. Sometimes she will roll down her window and yell at people. And this makes me very nervous because you never know how others are going to react. But she will scream, "It's called a blinker!" And we've all been on the road. We have all lost our cool a little bit with folks. So hers is just a little mild case of anger. If you go in Walmart, you're going to get angry, whether it's at people that get on your nerves, or it's the fact that shelves are empty, or they can't help you with what you need. You're going to get angry. If you watch the news, you're definitely going to get angry, because there are so many things that are just out of our control, and we want them to be different, and there's nothing we can do to change the situation. So you will get angry. Sorry, my cat has decided to join us. This is Wonton, and he's going to say hello, Wonton, say goodbye, Wonton. He'll probably jump back up, but I'll put him back down. Anyway, he likes to come in the office and help me work. What do we know about Samson? He is definitely someone who needed anger management. And when I ask folks, what do you remember about Samson? They say, well, the hair. And just to, in a nutshell, Samson, there was this man and woman, Manoah and his, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Manoah and his wife, and an angel came to the wife and said, "You're going to have a child. God has said you're going to have a child that's going to be dedicated to God's service. And while you are pregnant, you cannot drink and you cannot eat unclean foods." And she promised that she would follow those rules. And when Samson was born, he was dedicated to God, and he was supposed to live by those same rules. He didn't always do that, but God still blessed him by giving him a special gift of strength. And his strength came from his hair. As long as his hair was allowed to grow, he would stay strong, physically strong. That is how God blessed him. So a lot of folks remember Samson for his hair and his strength. Yes, he was the strongest man. He was from the tribe of Dan. He was one of God's chosen people. And he was a judge during that time. Now, if you read, we're in the book of Judges. The judges at the time were not people who sat and heard court cases necessarily. They were military leaders, and God called the judges to be leaders. He called them specifically to bring his people out of oppression. That is what the judges were to do, bring an oppressed people out of oppression. So Samson served as a judge for 20 years. He was a tribal leader, and he made military decisions. During that time, he lost his temper quite a few times, as we're going to see. And these judges were often, the ones that God chose, were often not good people by our standards, and yet God called them for a purpose. And there were 3 times, this is just a little fact about Samson, 3 times he asked for the Spirit of God to fill him. And he wanted that Spirit of God to fill him so he could kill somebody or something. His motives were not always the most pure. So we're going to learn a little bit more about Samson. And yes, he was full of anger. And the thing to know about his anger and ours is anger leads to destruction. When Samson grew up, he found a woman that he liked. And I'm just paraphrasing from Judges 14. He found this woman he liked. She was a Philistine. She was not one he was supposed to associate with. She was from the wrong side of the tracks. And but he liked her, and he said, "Dad, get this woman for me." So his father said, "Okay, I'll get her." And they got together. While they were on the way to the wedding feast, Samson is walking, and a young lion came out toward him to attack. And he grabbed the lion and just ripped it apart with his bare hands. Now, I don't know how I would react if a lion came at me. I would not grab it and rip it apart. But Samson did. That was his strength. And he carried on toward the feast. And a few days, he didn't tell anybody what had happened. A few days later, he's coming back by the carcass. And he looks at it. And inside the carcass of the lion, he sees a swarm of bees. And they've made a whole bunch of honey. So he grabs the honey and eats it. He takes some back to his mom and dad, but he doesn't tell them where he got it. He goes to marry this woman that he thinks he wants, and he has a feast, and he tells the men there, he says, "Okay, I'm going to have a riddle. You guess the answer to the riddle, I will buy everybody new clothes. If you don't get it, you all have to buy me new clothes." So he proposed the riddle: out of the eater, something to eat; out of the strong, something sweet. He was the only one who knew what the answer was. No, not even his parents. Nobody else knew. So I'm going to read a few verses from Judges 14, verses 16 through 20. So he's got this new wife. He's proposed this riddle. And the men keep going to the wife and saying, "Look, find out the answer. We don't want to have to buy him new clothes." So she's trying to find out the answer. And we pick up here in verse 16. Samson's wife threw herself on him, sobbing, "You hate me. You don't really love me. You've given my people a riddle, but you haven't told me the answer." "I haven't even explained it to my father or mother," he replied. "So why should I explain it to you?" She cried the whole 7 days of the feast. So on the 7th day he finally told her, because she continued to press him. She in turn explained the riddle to her people. And so they get the riddle, they give him the answer. He has to give them the clothes, and the way he does this, he's mad because they got the answer right. He gave the answer himself because he told her. And the Spirit of the Lord comes upon him. He goes down to Ashkelon, strikes down 30 of their men, strips their clothes from them, and takes those clothes and pays his debt to these folks for losing the riddle. And then the verse says, burning with anger, he returned to his father's home. And Samson's wife was given to one of his companions who had attended him at the feast. He is burning with anger at this point. Burning with anger. And yes, our anger, if we allow it to, will just burn inside of us. And now he's mad and he wants vengeance. But our anger can lead to destruction because he's mad. And in the next chapter, what he does, I'll paraphrase, is he catches some foxes. He ties their tails together, and foxes have very bushy tails usually, and he ties torches to their tails and lights the torches on fire. And of course the foxes run with these torches on their tails on fire. And as they go through, they burn up all of the grain, they burn up all of the vineyards, all of the olive press, the olive trees, the olive groves. They burn everything. They destroy the villages that these men came from, all because his anger is burning in him. Our anger leads to destruction. If you get mad, your anger is going to lead to destruction, whether it's because you say something you can't take back, or maybe you do throw a plate or a cup or something. You're mad. In his case, it destroyed a lot of crops, a lot of food, and our anger definitely destroys our relationships. Anger leads to destruction. And of course he's mad. Now he's made them mad even more, and they keep trying to arrest him. They get him arrested and he breaks free of the ropes. He's that strong. He's able to get free. And then he's even more angry. He takes the jawbone of a donkey, or an ass as this says, and he kills 1,000 men with it. Now I can't imagine. If I were going to kill some people, I don't know that that would be my weapon that I would choose. But that is what he chooses, is the jawbone of a donkey. 1,000 men, excuse me while I straighten the camera, that he chooses to kill these people with. Now, maybe I have it straight where it won't fall. You have technical glitches like this. That's technical problems. There we go. That's better. Okay, a little crooked, but I can just, okay. So he has still got this anger burning in him. He's killed these 1,000 men with a jawbone, and he's still angry. He has caused destruction. Another thing that our anger does, it doesn't just cause destruction for us. If you believe in God and people know that you're a follower, it implicates God, because they're going to look at you and say, if you're acting this way and your God is condoning it and allowing it, what kind of God are you serving? So this happens to Samson too. They finally do catch him, and I'll let you read the whole story of Samson and Delilah. Is in, and this is going to fall, is in chapter 16. Excuse me again. I'll try to fix it. Now let's see if maybe it will stay propped up. Okay, that's better. Samson and Delilah. We know he falls in love with yet another not so savory woman, and she is trying to find out the secret of his strength. Her people want her to find out the secret of his strength. And he finally, well, he tricks her several times. He likes to trick people. And he does that. But he finally gets tired of her asking. And then he says, it's my hair. So she has his hair cut. And as soon as his hair is shaved, it says that the Lord departs from him. God leaves him, because he has done wrong so many times. And as soon as that happens, God departs from him. His strength leaves him. His physical strength leaves him. And in Judges 16, 21 through 24, the people, they're finally able to arrest him because his strength has left. God has left. And in verse, let's see, 16, 21 through 24, the rulers, they get him, they seize him, gouge out his eyes, and took him down to Gaza. Binding him with bronze shackles, they set him to grinding grain in the prison. But the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. Now the rulers of the Philistines assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and to celebrate, saying, our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands. When the people saw them, they praised their God, saying, "Our God has delivered our enemy into our hands, the one who laid waste our land and multiplied our slain." Samson's actions didn't just show his character, they reflected on our mighty God, because they're praising their God, Dagon, saying, "He's the best. He beat Samson's God." When we lose our anger, when you lose your anger, it's going to reflect on God. We don't want that to happen. We don't want somebody saying, I don't want to serve your God if he allows you to act this way. But the good news is, his anger, our anger, has cure. And it's just God's grace. God's grace will cure it. Samson has one more chance. He is in prison. He is now blind. They've gouged his eyes out. He's being used as no more than a farm animal because they're having him pull the thing to grind the grain. And they decide, let's have some more fun with him. Bring him out and let him entertain us. We want to see. So there's 3,000 of them in this place that day, in this temple. Bring him out. Let him just, we're going to have some fun with him. And at this point, for the first time, Samson doesn't just react with anger. Samson makes a plan. And in chapter 16, the end of verse 25 says, "When they stood him among the pillars, Samson said to the servant who held his hand, 'Put me where I can feel the pillars that support the temple so I can lean against them.'" He's got a plan. Now the temple was crowded with men and women. All the rulers of the Philistines were there, and on the roof were about 3,000 men and women watching Samson perform. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." Then Samson reached out to the 2 central pillars on which the temple stood, bracing himself against them, his right hand on one and his left hand on the other. He pushed. He said, "Let me die with the Philistines," and he pushed with all his might. And down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than while he lived. Samson's final chance, he remembers God and he prays, "Lord, come to me again. Let me do what you first called me to do, which was to get rid of some of these people who are oppressing your chosen people." Samson finally remembered God, and God honored what Samson prayed. He killed 3,000 that day. Yes, he died himself, but he killed 3,000, did his final act as a judge. He knew that he could only be strong with God's grace, and God provided that grace as he does over and over. God did this in spite of Samson's past and all the mistakes he's made, all the anger he's held. God still loves him, and he hears Samson's confession and uses him one more time. Sin had kept Samson from praying all through his life, unto the point that his anger had literally blinded him, because he no longer has his eyes because of his anger. But God restores him and allows him to work one more time. Samson needed anger management. What he really needed was spirit management, the Spirit of God. He asked for that to come back to him, and it did. If you believe in God, you have the Holy Spirit, that same Spirit that can help you manage your anger. Maybe it's not your anger you need help with. Maybe you need help with self-control or gluttony or lust or any number of sins. Whatever it is, don't allow it to come between you and God the way Samson's anger came between him and God. All you have to do is do like Samson did and say, "Lord, remember me. Come to me again and let me do what you want me to do. And God will honor that confession and that prayer. God will use you in spite of your mistakes, no matter how bad they seem. Just remember, practice your spirit management whenever you are tempted to sin. Go read the whole story of Samson if you haven't read it. I hadn't read it since I was a kid, really. And there's so much in here. So much that I can learn from Samson, and you can learn. Watch your temper this week. Ask for the Spirit to fill you, to take the temper and the anger out and fill you with His peace. I love you. Let me know if I can do anything for you. And go read Samson's story in Judges. Have a fantastic day.